talking about?
I don't know.
Talk about the weekend.
Yeah.
What you did. You went around with the...
That's what pretty much we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. Counting down, heading into stuff. Hop day, y'all. Happy post Super Typhoon Wutip. Hey, team.
Wutip!
Hey, morning.
Good morning.
Guys.
Is it morning yet?
Yeah, thanks for joining us for the starting lineup. KUAM's morning meetings here this Monday morning. A lot happening this weekend and a lot more coming up this week now that the storm is way past us. But first, let's go to the coverage that we had happening this weekend and just how to look in the areas that you guys were at these past couple of days with Wutip passing through. Carmen, you were down south in Zonia.
Oh yeah, I was. I live in Jonia, so there was a lot of wind and rain, and wind and rain. I don't know. It was pretty crazy. But we went down there. The waves were really big. To Gachang Beach, first beach, huge. I don't know. It was cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
I find it really fun and fascinating, but I know people can get a little nervous if they live closer to the coastal area. But I also saw a surfer that went viral on Instagram.
That
like,
image you
was
shot was our most viewed picture of the weekend, of some dude like holding like a surfboard and in the middle of what was a maelstrom.
Yeah, shout out to Landon because he was able to like capture some photos too.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was crazy. I was like, in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? And it's funny, he actually messaged us on Instagram saying, I'm pretty experienced at this, so it's not like an everyday thing, or he's not a beginner. So that was pretty cool.
I'm going to talk about that in just a sec.
That was a really cool kind of moment. I wanted to talk to him, but it was raining really hard, and that's right near Inarahan pools. So the whole thing was like flooded. I don't know. I saw a bunch of people out there taking videos during the storm, which I'm sure I don't know.
Nobody listens anymore.
I don't know if you were supposed to be out there, but they were, right? And it was was completely flooded.
So from my perspective, because I was back here, doing like a lot of. I mean, I was at Civil Defense at least once. I can't even remember now. I was there, doing the live stream, and then, just kind of like seeing how everybody was reacting on social media. Putting like a lot of stuff together. And like you said, I mean, it was basically a weather system that anybody with a 6th grade education knew was not going to hit, did not hit. That being said, I mean, of course, you want to get ready and you want to be prepared, but everybody basically said, okay, look at the track, look at the chart. The forecasts are extremely accurate and they're very reliable. What was interesting, though, is that, of course, the new governor, loooooong, this would have been her first storm. She's off in D.C. on the conference, so Josh Tenorio, this was his first storm, because even Crystal Paco, a former colleague of ours, she was saying, this isn't our first rodeo. Everybody at Civil Defense has dealt with this scores of times, but for the administration, this was their first go-around, so they wanted to make sure they did it right, and they didn't want to rush anything.
Did they do it right? Because there was a point where they had sent out 2 different closest points of approach.
Yeah, and I think the explanation from Chip was that the predictions showed that it was going to track further north to the west of us, to the Marianas, and that's why they were predicting possibly the closest point of approach would be when it gets further north, but it looked like it changed direction, went further west, and so that 8 p.m. CPA ended up being what it was.
So for you guys watching on Facebook and YouTube, it was like this all night, and then it just went just a little like that, just straight left and everything. And they basically had to backdate the closest point of approach and say, oh, it was actually at 8 o'clock last night because it just veered so much.
It slowed down a lot, and it became a super typhoon almost overnight. I mean, that was really, thank the Lord. I always pray, so I'm just like, thank the Lord it didn't hit us.
I mean, we're sitting here right now, doing the Monday morning, literally Monday morning quarterback in this thing, but we were very, very fortunate, and we shouldn't take that for granted, because this one could have been really bad. 160 miles per hour is no joke.
No joke.
Yeah,
no joke.
I was seeing reports out of Chuk. They received a lot of damage. when the storm was passing their area, and that was when it was just a typhoon. So.
Big shout out though to GPA for maintaining. You know, every time there is a power outage, you know, they were on it in terms of you know the crew. Granted, you know the wind and rain and what they had to deal with out there. Luckily, my power never went out throughout the whole time. So
Mine did.
Mine did.
Oh, your guys' power went out.
Hashtag Southern Village.
Just for a little bit, and I'm that older generation where if the power goes out, I'm not going to totally freak, but I feel like at what point do we tell GPA, hey, just relax until it's over? I mean, because they're really risking. I mean, that's why we're saying thank you, is they're risking so much to go out there and turn on power for this like pansy generation that can't go 5 minutes without electricity.
A lot of things that they were doing out there too was clearing vegetation. Should there be a process in place that they do that around the clock and not wait for something like this to occur though?
Oh,
Sure.
they were out there at my house before the storm because there was a lot of trees like hitting the power lines. So I mean, shout out to Ed Leon Guerrero.
Yeah.
He was a little shy, but you know, they're hard
and
workers.
GPA has a policy. I mean, you know, and they always have that caveat. If conditions worsen to a point where they don't believe it's safe, then they stop.
in.
Yeah, they come right. Because they're not going to risk and they shouldn't. They shouldn't risk their personnel.
And you know, speaking of like government agencies being out there during the storm, DPW was down in Mauricio, where it usually floods down there near the Barcenas housing. They have this river that it tends to fill up with debris. So they were out there, like we saw them with the backhoe, picking up all of these.
Cool pictures.
Yeah, they picked up all of this debris, and we were talking to them, and it's like, you know, you're out there when the rain kind of stops. It's like, oh, okay, this is totally doable. But when it's, you know, even just really hard rain, this is really hard work to do during those conditions.
May I just add, and I just want to give a shout out of my own, because everybody keeps mentioning, you know, the Barcenas area of Mauricio. I mean, it's well known that that is a established like zone that will flood.
Yeah.
The Barcenas family also, if you guys didn't know this, have you guys ever been to a Barcenas family fiesta when they have the Mauricio fiesta? That is hands down one of the best fiestas, if not the best I've ever been to in my life. I actually went to school with Jesse Barcenas. He's a good friend of mine. We went to UOG together. So Jesse, you and your family, like, thank you for that. Like, their fiestas are insane.
Do you guys feel like we're all on the same page? Because I don't know if it's just this condition of readiness thing, but, you know, when they tell people stay indoors and we're getting, like, what I felt was, okay, it's not going to hit us, then people kind of get lulled into this false sense of security and they're out. I was one of those people who was out there during condition 1 and I was like, wow, it's way worse than I thought it was going to be. And so you have the government saying stay indoors, we have businesses staying open, and then, you know, that's it. Like, I was at the mall watching a movie during condition 1.
Yeah, the malls were open. I was surprised Kmart was open. Some stores did heed
so
the
it kind of
warning,
muddies the
shut
water,
down.
and I mean, it's not like, I hate again to bring up the olden days, but, you know, the olden days, Typhoon condition 1 meant like we're all going to die.
Well, you know why? It's because information these days has been decentralized now, and anybody can go on the web. Anybody can just pick up, you know, the forecasts and the projections and basically make their own determination. Especially if you're a business owner, you're looking at this as, okay, this is an opportunity to make money. Like if you're a theater company, right? You can just say, okay, we're going to give people like a safe place, a dry place, a control place where they can come and just for 2 hours, you know, hang out and you know, and be cool. But as long as I'm not endangering my customers and my employees, you know, we can continue to do business. And the problem with, you know, like before, like Nestor and Chris and myself, you know, for that, our generation, you had to listen to the radio, and everything that you know about the state of the world hinged on what came out over the radio for old school radio people like yourself. You know, everybody, and that was the only thing you knew. These days, you just go out and you do it on your own.
Yeah. But I mean, if you have these so-called experts telling everyone to stay indoors, but then you have businesses saying, hey, come over here, it's okay. Like, what, I mean, it really is a judgment call. So, you know, I stayed down south too, and I left my house and I was driving around in this crazy weather. Like, maybe there was a point where I felt like I should have went back home, but I didn't. I persevered and I got to watch a killer movie.
What'd you watch?
Cold Pursuit.
Oh, no, did you like it?
Yeah, it was good.
Well, that might be a personal choice. I mean, I think at the same time...
Fitting title, Cold Pursuit, considering you were out there.
Right, yeah.
That's irony.
But I think, you know, all they can really do is just put out the information, hope that people stay safe. I mean, that's basically all we can hope for. And it was quite a few miles away from Guam, but there was still a lot of rain and wind. And
I felt like it was worse after condition 4.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that still went to shelters because their homes can't, you know, persevere through even heavy wind.
It was trending on Instagram for a little bit, like what Chris just said, like right when they declared condition 4, maybe for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes afterwards, everybody was saying like, dude, it's even worse right now than it was in condition 1. You know, the rains were really coming down.
Yeah, there were some like bans. Like yesterday, I was like going to church 5 p.m. because all the masses were canceled. But then all of a sudden, it looked like a typhoon.
Reminds me of my mom. We were putting out all this information Saturday, and she was like, "Yeah, but what about mass?"
Hey, that's important,
It was important for a lot of people
it's
here.
very important. Yeah. We needed to go to pray so that another storm doesn't hit us, okay?
Right. So, how would you guys grade the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration's first major weather event?
Out
How'd
of
they
what?
handle it? I don't
Good
know.
question.
100? Out of 100?
Or out of
10?
Letter grade.
Letter grade.
Carm.
Letter grade.
Carm went to private school. They have a completely different grading system. Yeah.
R100 is there
Yeah.
like 120.
Okay.
Letter grade.
You had one of those fancy schools that was basically pass-fail, right?
Oh, man. No.
I'm going to say, I was at Civil Defense twice. I'm going to say I'm going to give them a strong B+. I think some things could have been, you know, like a little bit tighter, the dissemination of information. I mean, even
I
they
think
were
it's for
saying...
you, Jace, because you didn't want them to go to Core 1. You didn't feel like there might have been a need, maybe?
I mean, the problem I have with the current system is, you know, when a weather formation is close enough and the intensity of it is of a certain level, it's the military system. The military, you know, has to abide by their rules and everything. So technically, you have to go to condition 2. But you know, if you live on Guam and you've been here long enough, technically those aren't the metrics that you want to use. But practically, it's like, okay, you're paying attention to what's the closest point of approach, because you realize that maybe 2-3 hours after that, when the wind kind of dies down, you can hear it. That's when everybody starts going outside and cleaning. That's when you go around, you know, maybe get something to eat. And the condition, especially like on Facebook, because everybody's connected now. People that like don't live here anymore, they haven't been here for a while, they hear condition 2 and they freak out. They're not thinking of, okay, you know, go outside and just pick up the tarp and everything. If you haven't been here, you hear condition 2 and you're thinking Omar,
Right, yeah.
Pong Sung Hwa,
And that's the
Pamela,
problem,
Karen.
is that
They're
people-
thinking destruction. They're not thinking of getting ready.
We're not on the same page anymore, and I think that we're left in this position where we're putting the information that we get out there, and people just don't. I don't know if they don't believe the official word, because you're right. It's like we hear condition 2, our generation, we're thinking something totally different. This generation, condition 1, they look outside and it's like no big deal. So there's no real faith in the warning system.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern.
It's
is
almost like overcrying wolf. you
people
know?
aren't going to trust the government, and they're not going to need the media. I mean,
They
that's
already
scary
don't
for us.
trust the government.
Well, I think the thing about it is that because conditions of readiness and back then conditions, there's always been an ongoing debate. Is because it's objective. It's not subjective. So we might think,
point.
hey, it doesn't look like it's too bad. But you know, at a certain point, if at the onset of damaging winds are within this time frame, they have to declare it, right?
Yeah.
If it gets to even worse conditions, that it gets closer, then you have to declare condition of readiness 1. So I mean, it's the numerical is the conditions that
Would you have felt-
dictate where they.
Would you have felt better, Nestor, having covered, you know, storms with the previous system and everything, if we went back to the system that was tropical storm condition 4321 and then typhoon 4321?
Yeah, that's how they distinguished it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A tropical storm as opposed to a typhoon, as opposed to. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that debate's been raging ever since they started putting out this. And there was even a time where the government of Guam and the military weren't on the same page, so that was even more confusing, because the military had one, way of describing certain conditions, and civil defense back then had a different way. So
I wonder if Governor Leon Guerrero is going to consider at any point rolling it back to the old system.
That's just going to cause more confusion.
No, but I'm curious though. You were talking about letter grade. So what would you?
Well, I mean, because you have a lot of the classified people who are working in civil defense and Homeland Security, but I don't know if we had heard from the Homeland Security advisor, Tim Uggan. I mean, this was kind of his big opportunity to come out and almost take charge. Like, did we hear from him?
Not at all.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean,
And I think I don't know if it was them just making observe and watch for his first take.
Right.
But we did hear from Chuck Estevez, who's been
Right.
with the Office of
Yeah.
Civil Defense for some time now. So at least they did put him in front of the camera. My only concern was I was seeing a lot of the videos, incredible detail coming out from Guam Homeland Security and the Joint Information Center. Props to them, no doubt. But it seems like we were waiting for a lot of the information to be released when they wanted it to be released,
Right.
and not immediately
Yeah.
when we should have known it.
Yeah,
and
and
so
that's
that was
what-
my only concern.
That's a good point.
And so whether to give them a grade or not, why? That's my thought about it. Maybe they can work better at that. I get there's a system to it, and they want to be the first ones to make sure everyone's on the same page. But hey, we need to know the information much sooner, and not when you want us to.
Right, and you have this corralling of information that, you're right, I mean, they know things that we're not supposed to know until, like, oh, we can't tell the public until 3 hours from now.
Yeah.
My thing is,
it's our job to get it out there.
Facebook
Yeah.
and social connections are all based on trust.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a scary thing for our line of work, because now it's, if Carmen is my neighbor down the street, I'm not going to wait and trust the government to tell me something if she happens to have good information, or my cousin, or somebody
But that's
that
where
I'm
you
just
get
connected to.
misinformation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's-
and if I wind up
People are
trusting that
waiting.
person, it's like, okay, I know we're good to go.
And that's what I think happened when it came to schools, right? Like, when is school going to open? I think it was personally a little bit too late to tell, parents and everyone that this school is going to close at 1 p.m. the next day, right? And then all of this misinformation, personally, just on my end, on WhatsApp groups, right? A lot of people were sending different things.
Sending fake info out there.
They're saying, oh, all schools are canceled. And I'm like, no, that's not correct. So that was one of those things that, it could get really confusing, and school really, really matters. Like, we have a few hours that we're going to have to make up. So that's also something we're going to look at this week, is how they're going to make up for not only this storm, but the other storms that we've had this past school year. It all kind of adds up, and this is instructional time, and it's very valuable, and so I think that people need to know, is school going to be open on Monday, right? Like,
Well, I think in past
the question going
situations,
around.
if they'd used the shelters that late on Sunday, the schools would have been closed. Like, I think there was
Yeah.
2 storms ago where they didn't open them on time, so I know they
Yeah.
really hustled.
Yeah, I know they were trying their very best to put it out as soon as possible, and I get that, but I think, just communicate, tell us why, like, maybe say, okay, there's this thing that we're working on at this school, and it will be open by Monday, and this is how we're going to address it, right? Even a little information like that would also be helpful, just on the media side, I think.
Well, Carm, you were there in person, and I know from me, like, seeing how the digital world was responding, the South really, really gave Josh Tenorio, as acting governor, big thumbs up. They were so
Oh, they
appreciative of
did,
him
yeah.
showing up in person,
Yeah,
going
the
around
mayor
asking.
got really emotional.
Yeah,
when
they really,
he
really
showed-
loved him.
saw
So,
that
so
video.
Mr. Acting Governor, good job to you.
Yeah, Landon
They
says
really
that
approved.
it looks like partly cloudy, to mostly cloudy with isolated showers today. Still a bit breezy, but dangerous surf if near the water. So be careful out there in the water.
Yeah, surfers.
everyone,
I saw a
yeah.
lot yesterday too. They're all down there at Talafofo Bay. They are surfing. This is like their heaven. I don't know.
All right, guys.
All right.
Storm's over and done with. What else
Right.
is happening this
What-
week?
what else?
Today, Nestor.
Yeah, the 35th Guam legislature will have their first full official session today, and I think probably the biggest piece of legislation on the agenda has to do with the government of Guam employees' health insurance plan. Speaker Barnes has introduced legislation or a bill that would require essentially that GRMC be included in the bid package, Take Care is the only insurer on island that does not include GRMC. So of course they're protesting that or lobbying against it,
Right.
and of course GRMC is lobbying for it. It boils down to, depending on what your position is, for the speaker, I think her reason for introducing the bill was to provide choice for government employees. She cited examples of how employees would go to be treated at GRMC for emergency or for whatever reason, and they were Take Care members, and of course if they go to GRMC, Take Care does not have any agreement or contract with the private hospital, so it becomes a financial burden for them, for the individual employees, because they have to, as I understand it, pay out of pocket, then file for reimbursement, and then that's got to go through a process, and so it makes it a lot more difficult. Had GRMC been in the coverage, then all of that goes away, of course.
Yeah.
So I think that will probably dominate the debate today and tomorrow if the session goes into it. But there's only 4 bills, and there's I think 6 or 7 agency directors that are up for confirmation vote.
It'd be interesting to see what the take is from the other insurance providers to this, since TakeCare's pretty much been the one with its foot forward and very vocal with it. But it's also going to be very interesting, Chris, I'm sure you want to see who's going to show up to the first session, who's actually going to show face.
Bro, it must be nice to be a senator. You start off your term with a 2-month break, you know what I mean?
Right, I was just thinking that. But I mean,
like
they had a lot of
session now.
They had a lot of procedures to put in place.
Well, they got to have
public hearings
and
right.
stuff,
Yeah.
so they can't start on day one.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say one criticism that I'm noticing, Nestor, about, with people saying, okay, well, if I have to go to GRMC and it's an emergency, I have to pay out of pocket. I'm not crazy about that, but people don't realize, and people are starting to bring this up, like especially on Twitter, is that the rates and the pay, or the amount that each hospital charges, they are not the same.
Well, this is the thing. And this is what GRMC is trying to argue, is that, their rack rates, right, are much higher than GMH.
Right.
But if you have a contract with them, they negotiate that rate down. Mm-hmm. So if you're pay for service because your insurance doesn't cover it, you're going to get that rack rate, right? But if you are insured, say if you're Select Care or Net Care or Staywell, that has a deal, then you have a different rate.
Right.
So that's the issue, and that's part of the reason why I think the speaker introduced your bill. So that's true, but you have to take it in the context of, had you been under an insurance plan, that wouldn't be the rates that they're going to charge you. They're going to charge you a much lower competitive rate to what GMH charges, but you'd have to be part of the plan.
Let's hope they get that done.
Now, this kind of seems like it's like Take Care GRMC.
That's really what it boils down to, at this particular point in time. And that's been a long-standing dispute. I mean, I don't think that Take Care has ever had GRMC rather, as part of their coverage.
And one thing that's been a lingering issue over that's drawn legislative attention has been the charges dismissed against that suspect in the dog killing up in Jigo. Yep. Everyone's pretty much had some input in regards to that, but now, Chris, you wrote the story, a couple pieces of legislation, right? I think.
Right. Yeah. Now all the senators are like, I want to do a bill about animal cruelty. But so we have some duplication. I mean, they Senator Sabina and Senator Tello, right? Mm-hmm. Both introduced bills that were pretty much the same. Senator Luis. So Senator Sabina's would amend the existing law, and then Senator Munoz would create a new law but they both make a third-degree felony, like killing an animal.
And it had to do with the definition of what animal
cruelty was. If the animal suffered, or
that's right.
Yeah.
And you have to read the opinion very closely, because by law, I think that I know a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram were really
Facebook lawyers.
Judge Portalio shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. But if you really, if you are a lawyer and you read the opinion, it does make sense by law. The reason why he made that decision,
and
right?
And then it raises the question: did the prosecutors mischarge this case? Was there another charge that would have been more appropriate?
They would have gotten.
And he does have this part where he says perhaps you should have used this statute of the law that is more appropriate, right? And he's only citing case law of a similar case that happened in Pennsylvania, I believe. So I don't know. Maybe that's brings up a bigger question that we need to have a more defined law when it comes to animal cruelty. But I think this is the biggest, most high-profile case that has ever gone this far. Usually it just,
clearly on its face, I mean, you would think that it's a no-brainer. That's animal cruelty. You see the
pictures,
very graphic photos. And I think that's what really has raised the emotion of all the people out there, especially like what you read on
dog
Facebook.
Lovers.
Is that, it seems like, no-brainer, but then if you look at, as you were saying, the letter of the law.
Yeah. Really interesting topic, though. I think it's brought up a lot of discussion. A lot of people are really invested. So I think that's really good to see that people are not apathetic when it comes to certain issues. And I don't know, I really appreciate seeing people really putting their foot forward and saying, hey, we need to get this changed, or we need to do this. I know they even possibly planned something this weekend, but of course the weather.
Yeah. And what about the suspect in this case? Now I hear that he's getting death threats. I mean, it's all coming back on him. So I mean, now there are issues with his safety.
Yeah, the laws that the bills, they're not going to apply to this case.
Yeah,
you can't, right? So it'll be interesting to see how the AG proceeds with it if they were going to charge. And I don't know if they can do that. Is that
I think this kind of opens a bigger question about
is that going to be double? Is that going to be double jeopardy?
Right,
Because he's already been, so.
He already went through kind of the process, so.
Well, kind of like a bigger question I have just in paying, I mean, and I know Levin just started and he's got new people in there, but over the last few years, it kind of seems like the prosecution side for the Attorney General's office, not as strong as you'd like it to be, If you just look at a lot of cases they get plead out or, they drop the ball on, so.
That's just for a lot of the high-profile cases we have seen, but let's see if he's going to change that this year.
Yeah.
Now that he's in office.
Can I just say we all owe our girl here a big round of applause because on the KUAM Podcast Network, Joan's show, Fistful of Talent, is crushing it. Those interviews are really, really good, very inspiring, also very, very entertaining. So if your voice holds up,
Yeah.
what do you got coming up?
Actually, there is. I'm still trying to schedule that, but I wanted to kind of tie it in with Miss Chamorro coming up, so kind of focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right on, Miss Chamorro.
I know, so excited. We have a lot of...
The interview you had with the chef
It's going to be March already?
is wildly popular. It's an amazing story about a chef. You said no formal culinary training whatsoever.
Yeah,
He
Chef
just
Brendan,
yeah.
Yeah, he worked himself up the ranks and, started in the kitchen and just, now he's, chef de party at Hyatt.
That's incredible. Anybody can do anything.
Even you, Jason.
Even me. Yeah. What I would really like to do right now is get a nap.
Yeah.
Show of hands. How many of you guys actually slept 8 hours or more last night?
Oh, I did.
To the NyQuil.
I never sleep 8 hours anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never had the
That's
luxury.
too much. That's about 3 hours too much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, so Nicholas's district office is supposed to open
Yes,
on Friday.
thank you. I was going to ask about
Where's
that. I
the
remember...
location?
It's on the 3rd floor of the Seville Tang law office, so we only found out because he had updated his
website.
And they've been strangely quiet about this, and I think that if you look at nationally, right, he's got something in common with Alexandria Cortez, right, Ocasio-Cortez. She doesn't have a district office or a local phone number either, and we did a bunch of stories on it, and there was a lot of backlash from his family on the comments and stuff, but I feel like the veterans and these constituents kind of just took this like, when it opens, we'll go in and bother them. So I'm not sure how much traffic they've been receiving on the 1-800 number, but he did say March 1st was the target date, so I guess we'll be looking at that this week.
Yeah, did they ever respond to your request for comment?
Going on like the
war
5th email
claims?
with no response. So.
All right, so we're still waiting for the update to the fix.
Right, yeah.
All right, guys, anything else happening today?
Well, it's news. We'll see.
Yeah, guys, we'll
Knock
see.
on wood.
And
Happy Monday.
hopefully it's a happy one. We do also want to see your feedback and your story ideas as well on the KUAM News. Just put them in the comments below or email us, reporters@KUAM.com. These guys will be happy to get out there and tackle it the best they can.
Yes, understood.
And because it is your newscast, we'll see you tonight at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us for the start.
We got the after party tonight.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the after party.
So that's 6:30. Our guests are Jerry Chrysostimo, Republican Party Chair, Narissa Underwood, former senator, and Frank Blas Jr., former senator. So we're going to be talking about all the stuff that happened over the last month.
You're earning your paycheck
It
this
gets
pay
pretty-
period, my
yeah,
friend.
so-
Yes.
After party gets pretty juicy. It's
Yeah,
only every
yeah.
last Monday, right?
Right,
Or-
yeah. And so
of
we're
the
going to
month,
talk
so-
about pretty much all the stories that we touched on in the last month, whether it's war claims or pay corrections and stuff. So we'll be talking about all that tonight.
Okay. All right, guys. See you tonight.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye.